Good afternoon, and how today the Committee on General Government Operation and Appropriations is now called to order. Today is Wednesday, May 17, and the time now is 2 o'clock. In compliance with the open government law, the notice of this public hearing were posted on the Gov Guam public notice portal, KGTF PBS Channel 12, and disseminated via email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets on May 3rd and May 11th. The agenda will be, or the issues we're going to be discussing today is University of Guam's budget. In reference to Bill 26-37 COR, Committee on Rules by the request of I Magaʹhågan Guåhan, the Governor of Guam, in accordance with the Organic Act of Guam, an act making appropriation for the operation of the executive branch of the Government of Guam for fiscal year ending September 30th, 2024, making other appropriations and establishing miscellaneous and administrative provisions. At this time, I ask the members of the University of Guam that are sitting in the panel to please rise so the Sergeant at Arms will swear you in. Only if you're on the panel. Now, if you anticipate on speaking, then please rise. Otherwise, you won't be able to speak. Okay? Anybody else?
Please raise your right hand. Under penalty of perjury, do you all affirm that any and all information you provide today, whether it be verbally, electronically, and in writing, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God. Yes. Mr. Chair, you're under oath. You may proceed.
Thank you, Sergeant at Arms. The general rules for this budget hearing. Please provide my legislative staff with any documents for photocopying and distribution. If you have any testimony, please provide my staff a copy so they can have them make copies of it and distribute it to the members of the 37th Guam Legislature, okay? Panel members are asked to remain in the room for questions or for additional testimony as may be desired by members of the committee. Questions and testimonies shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda, which is we're only discussing University of Guam's budget. Personal inference as to the character or the motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. So in other words, let's all be nice to each other, okay? Let's just have a good discussion. Any violation of this general rule of conduct will result in removal from the budget hearing. Proper form and decorum shall be practiced by all present in the public hearing room for these proceedings. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum will be restricted from participating and will be escorted from the room. I know you have banners and signs. Feel free to hold them up. Just don't make a bunch of noise because we're going to go through the process of hearing, okay? I am alumni of University of Guam. I do support University of Guam, okay? But we just need to know where to go on the funding side. When you speak, please make sure that the microphone is on and that you speak into the microphone. Please state your name and your title for the record. I'd like to acknowledge my colleagues that have joined me this afternoon. We'll begin with the Vice Speaker, Senator Tina Muñoz-Barnes, and the Oversight Chair for University of Guam, Senator Amanda Shelton, and I have Senator Roy Cananta. I'd like to recognize who are on the panel. We have Dr. Kreis, we have Dr. Anita Enriquez, we have Mr. Mike Nahalwa, the UOG Region Representative. We have Kayana Rivera. I hope I didn't murder your first name, right? Is it okay? Okay, good job. Thank you. We have Julie Laksamana. I wonder if you live in the street I live, up in Jigu, but that's okay. You do, right? Your dad's the police officer, right? God bless you. And we got Randy Wiggin. And we have a, what's his name?
Richard. Rachel.
Rachel. Is there? You're in the back. Penmanship, like, girl? I'm just going to tease you about it because I couldn't read the name. But that's okay.
Senator, we also have student Jam Aiken. Yes,
I'm just about to mention name. We got Jam Atcham. Is it pronounced correctly? You're the student rep. And with that, because we have a Board of Regents representative here, the Board of Regents will start out, and then you'll be followed by Dr. Kreis. Okay, so go ahead and give your opening spiel, Mike. I know Mike for many years, at least 40 years, if at least, right? But anyway, go for it, Mike. We're good.
Okay, thank you, Senator San Agustin. Oops, sorry about that. Yeah. Good afternoon and happy day. Senator and Chairperson Joe San Agustin, members of the Committee on General Government Operations and Appropriations. I would like to submit testimony on behalf of the Board of Regents as Regent Treasurer in support of the 2024 fiscal budget. This comes at a crucial time for the university, which is currently going through transitions in leadership at both the administrative and faculty levels, and preparing for accreditation review this spring. There is no question that the university has made great strides under its strategic plans and initiatives, but it will take more than just the Triton Village alone to truly succeed. It takes considerable public and political will to entrust the university with being a faithful steward in higher education. The university should be driven first and foremost by its education and research mission. But with this steep decline over the past 5 years in appropriations, the university has been so hard-pressed against its budget ceiling, especially now without any safety net of the federal rescue funding, which has relied onto the pandemic. It is simply not sustainable to expect any public university to operate on a shoestring budget. Without the financial resources needed to continue raising the education bar, enhance its reputation, improve its ranking, and maintain its accreditation. Our graduates are accomplishing so much more than the generation before them. As parents, we have high hopes for these graduates to make their mark in Guam and the wider world. Yet while they have proven that the system works, without the university's long-term ability to attract and retain talented and dedicated faculty, collaborating with the administrative leadership, those expectations may as well be regarded as wishful thinking. While students come first, there also needs to be a major shift in focus on the faculty whose work cultivates a thriving academic campus environment, promote critical thinking and dialogue, and is ultimately a measure of student success. The university is yet again faced with challenges to its much-needed legislative financial support to fund its operations beyond just survival mode. More than 70 positions remain vacant, stretching even more thin the administration, faculty, and staff's ability to effectively run the various departments within the university. The update to the faculty pay scale and the 22% salary raises proposed for all classified employees are also included in the proposed budget for the university. The Board of Regents cannot afford to remain silent any longer, and through our testimony, express the urgent need for meaningful action by our elected leaders. Zeus Masi.
Thank you, Mike. Dr. Christ, this I know is going to be your last budget hearing, so be kind. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Madam Vice Speaker and Senator Shelton and Senator Kenyatta for this opportunity. And so on behalf, of course, of the Board of Regents, as well as the students, faculty, staff, and administrators, I thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony in support of the budget request of the University of Guam for fiscal year 2024. We are requesting $42 million for general operations, $4.5 million for student financial assistance programs, $1.6 million for the Capital Improvements Fund, and $1.9 million for continuing special appropriations. I also want to thank you and other members of the 37th Guam Legislature for taking time to meet with university administration, members of our Board of Regents, and officers of our 61st Student Government Association prior to this budget hearing. We are appreciative of the general support we've received thus far in our budget discussions and for the support and concern you've shown for the welfare of our students. The last 5 years have been about survival instead of growth. While our ability to win federal research grant funds have been excellent, we can't use these funds for general operations. Funding shortfalls directly affect the levels of service and support we can provide to our students. Our students are resilient, but they deserve the best university experience that our government can provide. Since 2018, UOG has experienced a decrease in GovGuam funding for its operations, and there's a chart, I think if you're following along with me, you can see the figures there. In fiscal year 2018, UOG received $30.7 million. 5 years later, in fiscal year 2023, the amount decreased to $23.6 million. That's the lowest for UOG in over 20 years. This amounts to a 22% decrease in funding between 2018 and 2023. Adjusted for inflation, the decrease is more than 35%. To cope with this reduced fiscal situation, the university has instituted strict financial controls by drastically limiting spending on contracts and equipment, deferring hiring across all employee types, including faculty, deferring maintenance, and significantly reducing basic maintenance and upkeep projects across campus. The university was also awarded funds through the American Rescue Plan from the U.S. Department of Education, totaling $29.6 million. Of this amount, $13 million was required to be paid directly to students, providing relief to UOG students at a time of great need. The university used the remaining $16.6 million of its institutional funds to support a move to online classes and operations, and that amounted for $6.8 million of that amount during the pandemic. To cover other operational expenses and revenue losses constitutes $6.3 million of that figure, and additional support for students, which I might remark is unusual among universities to use institutional funds for that purpose, but it provided additional support for students and paid over $3.5 million in tuition and fees reimbursements, and as well as a need-based grant aid to students. Despite the decline in local appropriations, the university continues to confer degrees on over 3,000 graduates over the last 5 years. We still have a responsibility to serve all students in our programs. We have also been responsive to growth-related demand, including the launch of the Master of Accountancy program, which aims to train and develop local CPAs, as well as the recently approved online Chamorro Studies degree, which was approved by our creditor, WASC. And also the passage of the Doctor of Education degree by our Faculty Senate, which we hope will soon be approved by WASC and be our first doctoral degree. As well as we provided new workforce-related programs to support demand in our community, such as cybersecurity and drone technology, just to name a few. While we have accomplished much, even with decreased appropriations over the last 5 years, we are anticipating significant hardships for our students and employees, including reductions to programs and services should funding not increase significantly in upcoming fiscal years. Our $42 million budget request for the general operations includes the following line items. $2.1 million is to implement the 22% staff salary adjustments proposed by the governor. This amount will cover that general pay plan adjustments for staff, classified staff in fiscal year 24. We also thank the legislature for providing $1.1 million through Public Law 37-3 to cover the general pay plan increase in fiscal year 23. UOG is in the process of ensuring all merit bonuses, which comes to $292,200 for 66 employees who are affected, and increments, make sure that the increments are up to date by May 30th of this year. We plan to implement the fiscal year 2023 salary adjustments pending the Board of Regents approval, which we anticipate will be next month in June. Another piece of the total request is $3.6 million for Phase 1, an increase to the faculty salary schedule. UOG needs to address a long outdated faculty salary scale, which has been further diminished by the recent raise to the GDOE's teacher pay plan. The Board of Regents passed Resolution 22-43, which approves updating the faculty salary schedule and requires the university to budget for a Phase 1 increase of 20% in fiscal year 2024. Future phases, as outlined in the Board of Regents resolution, would implement another 20% increase through either 5 or 10% adjustments within the next 2 to 4 years. Another element of the $42 million request is $3.8 million to fill vacancies caused by deferred hiring over the past 5 years. For fiscal year 24, we are prioritizing 53 of these vacancies in these critical positions, which include 14 faculty positions, 7 administrator positions, and 32 student support staff. Filling these positions will restore our personnel to pre-COVID levels. In fiscal year 23, we were able to hire 17 full-time employees, including 2 administrators, 1 faculty member, and 14 staff members. The university has been forced into a position where we must freeze hiring and not replace personnel who have vacated positions. Part-time faculty and limited-term appointments have been used to bolster degree programs and student support services, but depending too much on part-timers shortchanges our students by reducing curriculum development, advising, and support for first-generation students. The lack of faculty and support staff affects the number of classes our students need to finish their degrees on time. Filling these vacancies is a priority for the university in fiscal year 24. And one more element of the $42 million request is $1 million for deferred maintenance. This request also includes $1 million for UOG to begin addressing the nearly $9 million in deferred maintenance projects which have grown over the past 5 years. Current funding levels have been inadequate to address regular maintenance on facilities and equipment such as leaks, air conditioning malfunctions, elevator failures, and other general maintenance requirements. The university has had to resort to workarounds and quick fixes. Several buildings have experienced serious leaking during the recent heavy rains. Other appropriations separate from the university's general operations appropriation include $4.5 million for the Student Financial Assistance Program. The university is requesting the $4.5 million request for $4.25 million of it for the Student Financial Aid Program and $250,000 for the First Generation Trust Fund. This will fund undergraduate and graduate scholarships in the medical, health, and education fields and allow UOG to provide more funding towards need-based scholarships. The university also needs the legislature's support to administer local financial assistance programs. In fiscal year 23, UOG addressed the legislature's concerns by awarding 9 new ProTech awards, all in the medical or health fields, 20 additional nursing scholarships, and 15 social work scholarships. Another separate appropriation request is for $1.6 million for the Capital Improvements Fund. The university is requesting this amount for its Capital Improvements Fund from the Guam Educational Facilities Fund. The university is currently engaged in ensuring the completion of 4 new buildings: the Student Success Center, the School of Engineering Annex, the Weary Building, and the School of Health Nursing Annex. We will continue to work with USDA and EDA to complete the necessary requirements to complete the construction of each building, and we anticipate that all will be built by 2025. We also have a separate request for appropriation of $1.9 million for continuing special appropriations. And in this category, the university continues to be a good steward of special appropriations and seeks continued support for the Water and Environmental Research Institute, WERI, the Aquaculture Development and Training Center, Hatchery, the Sea Grant Program, and the Guam Green Growth Initiative. These programs are directly related to the university's mission, and we hope these will remain as separate appropriations to support these programs. By adequately funding UOG, the government of Guam invests in the success of our students. It expands UOG's research and service capabilities, and it receives a return on that investment that benefits all of Guam. UOG develops the professional workforce for our island and our region, such as nurses, social workers, educators, entrepreneurs, public servants, researchers, cultural advocates, and more. When our Tritons dream and achieve, Guam is better for it. For the 3rd year in a row, UOG has been named a top university for social mobility by the U.S. News College Guide. This speaks to the opportunities UOG provides our students to rise above and succeed. UOG has renowned research institutes that are providing critical expertise and research that benefit the community's water quality, marine life, resource conservation, ecological needs, and cultural preservation. UOG is in the top 35% of U.S. universities in research performance. Finally, Gov Guam's funding support for UOG ripples through the entire island community. For every $1 UOG receives in the general operations appropriation funding that we get from Gov Guam, UOG generates $3 in additional tax revenue. The University of Guam can be counted on as a sound investment. On behalf of the university community, I humbly ask the Guam legislature to grant our general operations request of $42 million. This will stabilize university operations and demonstrate our commitment to the success of our students by putting that commitment into action. Thank you again for the support the legislature has provided to the university. We look forward to collaborating with the Guam legislature to solve problems and expand opportunities for our people. And now, if it's okay with you, Mr. Chairman, I would like to have two students make short presentations.
Yes,
if
please.
That's allowed?
Yeah,
Okay,
if there's
thank you.
anyone else who'd like to make a statement? The two, I guess, at the
So
end?
the
or
two, so if we could start with...
whichever one.
All right, I think we're going to start with Julie Laxamana, the student regent, student
right.
member of the Board of Regents.
Okay. Buenas and half a day, everyone. Thank you, Chairman, Vice Speaker, and other senators for allowing us to speak on the floor. My name is Julie Laxamana, and I'm fortunate enough to have the title of being the student regent of UOG. And on behalf of our students, we have one thing to say. Why? The University of Guam has been pivotal for the success and growth of the social and economic developments of the region because of our student achievements. To highlight, within the semester, an SBPA student received a Truman Scholarship, and a communications major received an Award of Excellence for their micro-documentary, both of which are nationally recognized achievements. But also, UOG has had interim positions for school deans and vacant seats in faculty. Because of the lack of staff, students actually miss certain class cycles and fall behind their graduation date. I started my journey at UOG 2 years ago when we were still kind of deep in the pandemic in hopes of pursuing a degree to be in forensics. 2 years later, my graduation date was pushed because I missed a class cycle for a course that's only offered in fall or spring. It also speaks for my other peers who are held back a year or two due to the same circumstances. 2 years later, we get just enough funding to finally hire a therapist, someone who is crucial to the mental health of our students, especially after such a life-changing event. And 2 years later, with inflation at an all-time high, we are still being given the same budget to barely survive off. As reported in our fact book of fiscal year 21 to 2022, UOG has generated almost 4.1 thousands of jobs for Guam that opened because of the education from our institution. That's a whopping $78.5 million generated in tax and $349.5 million generated in overall income. As reported in the media, we are well known for sending our students to different organizations like the National Science Foundation and EPSCoR to further their academics in fields that they want to explore and pursue. Well, that's if they can pursue it further on island. It's difficult to retain valuable assets to the community because of the expansion of degree courses lag behind due to insufficient funds to hire more and to do more. Senators say $42 million is a dream for UOG, but in reality, it's a long-term investment for our future healthcare workers, our government workers, scientists, reporters, teachers, business owners, and many more. The future is here, and the future is us sitting right behind this table. The point is, investing in UOG means investing in our students, all 2.6 thousand of us. And us students will not stop fighting for our 42. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. And now, if it's all right with the chairman, we'll have the president of the 61st Student Government Association, Kiona Rivera.
I'd just like to remind that, give us a copy of the testimony so we can make copies, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kreis. Hafre, thank you for taking the time to meet with SGA, GYC, and many other students prior to this budget hearing. My name is Kiona Rivera. I am the 61st Student Government Association president, but most of all, I am also just an average student with 4 jobs, just trying to make ends meet with trying to fulfill my higher education with the University of Guam. I am here on behalf of 2,000 students to pledge for your support in UOG's FY24 budget of $42 million. With the basic cost of living in Guam increasing, including food, housing, gas, and power, just to name a few, a tuition increase would only add to the difficulty of getting through college. I live in a single-parent household where my dad works 3 jobs to put food on the table every day. I can't even afford health insurance because the cost of living in Guam is just too high. But what I can afford is your support in investing in my higher education. If funding doesn't improve soon, UOG may have a choice but to raise tuition. Our university has been doing without a lot of its necessities. I've learned that over the last 5 years, UOG's budget has been slashed 23%, which is over 35% when you adjust for inflation. As a student going into my last year, I just can't understand why. Over the past few weeks, with meeting some of the senators, I still find it difficult to understand why UOG's budget has been cut so much. When I asked the senators if there is enough funding for this request, the answer was yes. So I really don't understand why we cannot get this approved. We need the money, and you've heard it so many times. Many of my fellow students might not be able to graduate on time or get the classes they need for their schedule due to a faculty shortage. In fact, some of our professors have left for better economic opportunities than what UOG can offer them. Many of our facilities are in desperate need of repair. Roofs leak, bathrooms need new fixtures, air conditioning does not always work in some of our buildings. So allow me to ask you, what kind of experience and opportunities do we want for our future high school graduates? Because I know what kind of future I want for them. And if and when I do get a seat in the legislature one day, I would want to make sure that they can have the opportunity to enroll in their dream program at UOG. But before then, we have to make sure that our programs are still standing strong and not being patched up over and over again. And we can do that with $42 million. So I am standing on behalf of 2,000 student voters who garnered your seat in the legislature today to genuinely ask you, why wouldn't you support investing in an excellent college experience? Please make our vote count. You have the power today to not make this college experience harder for me and my classmates. I pledge to all of you today, senators, please help students by helping UOG. Sisuus Masi.
Thank you, Ms. Rivera. I hope to see you over here on this side in the future. Dr. Christ, is there anyone else who would like to testify? You would like? Okay, please, just state your name so we know. Everybody knows who you are.
Half a day. My name is Jam Aichim, a student of the University of Guam. Undanklu na Sisuus Maasi for giving me the opportunity to speak on the floor. Thank you, Honorable Chairman San Agustin and honorable members of the legislature for having us. I would like to also express my gratitude to those who are here to provide testimony on why the University of Guam needs this budget. The University of Guam plays a vital role in providing higher education, conducting research, and contributing to the development of our island community. The university's mission, Ina, Descubri, Setbi, to enlighten, to discover, and to serve, empowers the region by uniting island wisdom with universal sources of enlightenment to support exceptional education, discovery, and service that respect and benefit local and global communities. However, to sustain and enhance these efforts, adequate financial resources are imperative. The budget that is being requested today may be utilized to support key areas of the university's operation and initiatives to help us, the university, fulfill their mission. Here are some things we can allocate the budget towards. The university can allocate this budget to academic programs and student support. With this, they can enhance offerings and curriculum development, invest in faculty recruitment and retention, upgrade instructional facilities, laboratories, and technology infrastructure, and strengthen academic advising and student support services. The university can also use this money to invest in outreach and community engagement by expanding community service programs for K-12 students and lifelong learners, and promoting cultural preservation and indigenous knowledge. In addition, this budget request would also be beneficiary towards research and innovation, infrastructure and maintenance, And finally, administration and operations. Allocating some of the budget will allow the university to recruit and retain qualified administrative staff and enhance professional development programs for staff members to ensure compliance with regulatory and recitation requirements and improve efficiency and effectiveness of administrative processes. Once again, Kiliso Jabur Zan Undanklu Nasizus Maasi for giving me the opportunity to speak on the floor.
Thank you, sir. I think I've seen another student would like to speak. Please, let's get a chair so you can sit up here. Once you get up, Randy, you lose your seat. We're not gonna let you up. We'll leave the student up here. I need younger folks up here so we can understand where they're coming from. Go for it, sir. Please just state your name and.
Thank you, Chairperson San Agustin. I was supposed to submit this as a written testimony, but I thought I would rather have to speak or read this to the panel. But first off, Hafiday Senator San Agustin and members of the committee. My name is Agustin Fortuno, and I serve as the treasurer of the Student Government Association. Now, concurrent with that capacity, I also serve as the vice president of the Trident Changemakers, the vice president of the Political Science Student Association, and as one of UOG's 4 representatives in I Magaʹhågan Guåhan, the 34th Guam Youth Congress, where I serve as the chairperson of the Committee on Education and Youth Affairs. But most importantly, however, I am proud to introduce myself as a UOG Triton. I am currently a junior undergraduate student, double majoring in secondary education and history for education. Now, with my degree from UOG, I hope to one day become a public school teacher and help educate and inspire the minds of the future of our island. And today, I would like to testify in support of UOG's fiscal year 2024 budget of $42 million, all of which I believe will put the university on a course of completing its mission of Ina Descubri Setbi, to enlighten, to discover, and to serve. As a student, I have seen the dire situation that the university has found itself in over the course of the past 5 years due to the decreasing local appropriations since fiscal year 2018. UOG's local appropriations has decreased by $17 million, a 23% cut in nominal terms and 35% cut in inflation-adjusted terms. This enduring reduction in support for the university has resulted in 77 vacancies in faculty and staff and the deferred maintenance of many of our campus facilities, among other issues. Now, hearing the grunts of my fellow Tritons, the effect of this cut has caused undue consequences on the students of the university, and I am here today to profess some of these concerns myself. Now, the effects of the long extent of vacancies in faculty and staff at the university has led to many difficulties for UOG students, including myself, who have had to adjust and gain less from the higher education that we have paid to pursue. Due to these vacancies, we have been forced to deal with not having enough classes that we need in order to graduate, due to the lack of enough faculty to offer and teach those classes, and not enough academic advisement from professors, due in part to the university's reliance on adjunct professors who do not offer office hours due to their part-time capacity and are only present on campus during class hours, during hours at odd and often inconvenient times, forcing students to rely for assistance from limited support staff. At the School of Education, we currently have 2 vacant faculty positions that have remained unfilled since I became a UOG student 3 years ago, causing undeserved stress for aspiring teachers like me who have had to deal with conflicting class schedules. Now, in October of last year, the UOG Political Science Student Association put together the 2022 Senatorial Forum and hosted 28 of the 30 candidates aspiring to become a member of the 37th Guam Legislature. Once again, I extend my gratitude to you all for taking the time to join us at the class lecture hall and helping my fellow students make a more informed decision on the candidates that they desire to become a part of their legislature. Now, hosting that forum was not an easy feat for us students. You know, devising questions that offer a wide array of issues that concern our island, gathering comments from our peers on the question they wish to ask their senators, etc. Yet there was one hanging concern that we found ourselves defeated in encountering, and that was the issue of the lack of air conditioning in the lecture hall. Well, on all 3 nights of the forum, several standing fans purchased by the college helped make the room slightly cool, as students, faculty, and senatorial candidates alike continued on with the forum. Senators, you have seen firsthand the issue with declining facilities and equipment at UOG due to the lack of funding and support to support maintenance and upgrades on campus. And I ask for your support in helping UOG fix those issues for the benefit of students like me. This is just one of many stories of UOG students who feel that our desire for a quality higher education has been brushed aside. And I ask for your help in urgently addressing the concerns of UOG students like me by investing in our institution like Guam legislatures did decades ago. In 1994, the university received nearly $64 million in inflation-adjusted dollars for 2023 in local appropriations, unleashing a wave of capital improvements on campus that we continue to use and cherish today, from our agriculture and life sciences building, whose important work supports our agricultural industry, to our humanities and social sciences building, which has generated hundreds of history, tomorrow studies, and political science graduates, some of which are doing the work for the people in this very building today. Although the university has made its commitment to the Student Government Association that it does not intend to raise tuition for students in the near future, we find ourselves troubled by the administration's concern that this is likely contingent on whether it receives the full $42 million of support from the legislature. Senators, we are still recovering from the effects of the pandemic. Although tuition has remained relatively flat, we cannot afford any tuition hikes, especially when put up against the inflated prices of gas, power, water, food, or childcare. Senators, we ask that you make this necessary commitment in supporting our university to prevent any undesired tuition hikes by supporting and passing a full appropriation of $42 million for the University of Guam. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak before you today.
What was your last name again?
Fortuno?
Fortugo? Okay. I guess we're going to see you up here also soon. Okay. Good presentation. I really appreciate it. Anyone else? Dr.
Senator,
Tom?
if I could just introduce some other people in the room so you know who else you have access to who might also want to say something or respond to questions that you might have. We have Lisa Pravito, the chair of the Board of Regents. Of course, with Mike Nahalua, the treasurer of the Board of Regents. We've mentioned, of course, our two vice presidents, and Anita Borja Enriquez, the senior vice president and provost, and Randy Wiegand, the vice president for administration and finance. And then we also have Lawrence Camacho, the dean of enrollment management and student success. We have James Selman, the dean of the College of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences. We have Mark Duarte, the director of the student financial aid program. We have Marlena Pangilinan, the Vice Provost for Institutional Excellence, Institutional Effectiveness. We have Dave Okada, the Chief of Staff. We have Charlene Santos Bamba, the Vice Provost for Everything Else, she has the longest title at UOG, Graduate Studies, Online Learning, and several other things. We have Kat Perez, the Executive Director of the UOG Endowment Foundation, and I think we also have Nathan Paz and we have Christian Ramos, both members of the Guam Youth Congress, along with Austin Fortuno. And I think there are probably more here. Oh, and we have Dr. Kathy Wood, the interim dean of the Margaret Perez Hattori Uchima School of Health. And we have Orana El Sagini from the Staff Council at UOG.
Did that pretty much cover everybody, I guess?
Almost.
Dr. Christ? I mean,
And we have many other sign holders.
yes. That's a good one. You know, a couple of weeks ago, we met with the chairwoman of the Regents, Mrs. Pravito, right? And I know we had a healthy conversation at my office. But you know what? I'm only going to say number one. I'm not going to say no on your budget, and I'm not going to say yes either. I just got to take a look at the whole picture. UOG doesn't stand alone when we talk about GovGuam budget. I know Mike knows that. We have to take a look at everybody's and everybody's role. But I'm not going to say no to 42, because I remember, like, I graduated in 1990 from the University of Guam, a few years ago. And at the time when I first started going to University of Guam, it was free the first 2 years. And I've been trying to figure out a way how to find that funding to make it free for the first 2 years, and that get the government to commit to contributing to the University of Guam. And if we can find the means to do that, that would be a great start because then there's no tuition increase. It's automatically making sure that what it costs to run the University of Guam, I think it came out to about $15, $16 million a year to fund that program. A year. So that's almost 30-some million dollars for 2 years. And that would have been continuous for many years to come. But unfortunately, at the time, money was good, but then it started to, window down. But you know what? I also asked the management of University of Guam and the regents that when you hear discussions, because I know that University of Guam got involved when we talked about the GPP, and I said, thank you, get involved. Otherwise, you wouldn't have got the GPP or had an opportunity for that. There are some agencies that are still asking, can we get involved? Where were you when we were discussing it? It was all over the news. But moving along, I also mentioned to the chairwoman is that I know that you're not teachers, you have professors. But when we talk about teachers' increase in pay, they say, we're faculty, can you consider us? And it doesn't hurt. Because why? This is a different title now. You're a professor, you're a teacher. The teacher could be a professor. And the professor could be a teacher. So get involved when you hear discussions going on with DOE, just like they do for nurses. When we talk about GMH, we also talk about the nurses at the schools and everywhere else. So when you hear discussion coming on, as the student rep, please tap on management and say, hey, get involved in it, because you never know. It may include you. And we would have taken care of the 3.6, I believe, on the faculty race. And then we could be looking at this year to be the second round, because I think you're only looking at 3 rounds. And if we can complete that, that'll be not an issue no more. Because, when I look at your budget today, you have 32 million. If you add the 2 million for the GPP, that's what, 34? And if you add the 3.6, that gives you what, 38? We're getting pretty close to 42 million. The simple math. Mike, I know, enjoys that. Simple math. Just do the math, and it adds up. But we have to be very careful because I brought it up in the past. I know what the region has to go through with management. When you have discussion and when you start talking about money, reach out to us and say, hey, we're talking about money. Can you take care of us on that aspect? Because when you don't let us know and we give you a funding and we didn't know and then you start to spend it, we're caught with, why are you spending there when we didn't approve that? That wasn't in the budget. I know the University of Guam stands alone. I understand that. I respect that. When it comes to funding, if we were not part of that discussion, it should not impact the students. And I agree with you. Air conditioning should be working. Buildings should be painted. There's no doubt about that. There should be faculty for every class. There should be a means and a way to fund that. But that's something that my colleagues, when we sit down and we go through the budget and we figure out where's the money coming from and how we can fund it, then we'll move from there. And please understand, it's not about, even if senators told you yes, they're probably the senators that, I'm not going to say anything bad about them, but they didn't sit down with me and say, do we have the 42? Because I'll tell you right now, if we had the 42 million, we wouldn't have this discussion. We'll just skip this hearing. We're going to entertain the 42. Let's move on to another agency. It would have been easy. But I can't say that today. But I will make an honest effort. As the chair of appropriation, I will make an honest effort on our side to convince all my colleagues that we're finding money to cover University of Guam, and then move forward and figure out how we cover the other Gov Guam agencies, because there's more than just one. You got, other than you guys, we got to deal with 47, right? 47 agencies. You're one of 47. And some of them are more than 42. Like DOE's 200, 300 million, and then the other agencies. And that's what we have to deal with. But take a look at the whole picture, then we put it together. And for some of you, I don't know if you were in the class that I showed up with the Office of Finance and we gave presentation about the budget, how we come up with the budget. Some of the students, when they walked away, said, wow, we didn't really know that. But after we finished explaining, they were happy. They understood where it come from. Supporting UOG is an easy thing, but finding the funds to make it reality is another thing. And I look forward to my colleagues from asking questions, and I'm comfortable with what you guys submit. I just need to figure out how to juggle the money, okay? Madam Vice, because I know the Oversight Chair would be the last. Do you have any questions? I'd like to also recognize Senator Brown has joined us this afternoon. Thank you. Madam Vice Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here this afternoon as one of your committee members. I do want to say, President Christ, and to Madam Chair, Board of Regents, and all the presenters here, thank you very much for being here. I do also want to extend my thank yous for letting students work with the presentation and work here, and truly believing that I'm hopeful that several of you will take this position sooner than later, because I know that you're already on that, nearing that age of qualification to be in this position. As I listen to you intently today and previously, I've always said that I truly believe that the University of Guam should be the educational gem of not just the islands, but the whole blue continent. As we receive students all the way down from RMI, FSM, Palau, even folks from off island in doing the exchange programs that come out here. And I believe that you should get all the funding. And as I look at what is presented in the budget digest, and knowing that the different object categories may differ, and how do we adjust on what's more important than the other, because I think all of it is critical, but we may need to make that hard decision. I'm very appreciative to seeing that the numbers here. I just want to make sure that if there's any other resource out there that we can tap into that may go in additionally into the general fund, maybe those things that we can look at. As the chair talked about the juggling, I'm saying, how creative can we do to step outside the box and seeing what are the proposed funding sources coming in. So as the chair broke down the possibility of all the additional funding that may bring it closer to the 42, I want to see how we can find all of it, because you are right, Ms. Rivera. We cannot shortchange anybody here. As I believe in my heart that this is the university that is the gem of the Pacific, I think we should continue to advocate for that, and you guys have done that very well. So for me, Mr. Chair, I want to see what other additional resources are out there. So when I find it and help find it, I'm going to see. I'm an optimist, and I believe that with the military buildup, with the audits that are going out there, with working closely with the Office of Public Accountability, and seeing what the extra funds that are there, those are maybe possibilities and object classes that I can probably work with. And I'm really hoping, Mr. Chair, that I can work with you to find that additional funding, because for me, if there's a will, there's a way, and if I can find it and help it and work with you, Mr. Chair, and the Oversight Chair of Education, Madam Legislative Secretary, I literally want to see the University of Guam get it. So in that commitment, I will continue to work hard. I know that when we look at the budget breakdown based on category, I know that on personnel alone, the difference in the adjustments between the authorized level and the 2024 request is at 10 million, 10.924. And it's just getting the justifications for that and making sure, because as I look at all the other programs, don't want to take away from anything, but how can we get to make sure that the resources are in there? And the 22%, is that all incorporated in here? Yes? It is.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. So Mr. Chair, I'm literally hoping that the additional funds that may be out there that I've said, based on the continued audits that the OPA is working with, and seeing the numbers. I really think that we can look for the funding for that, and I will continue to stay hopeful to give UOG what it needs. So thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, and thank you. And exactly what she mentioned. And you know, folks, understand that all the senators, or Senator Canante will be back, all the senators up here are part of the committee. So we're all trying to find a way. And if there's money out there that's sitting and nobody's spending it, why not try to give it to you and get you going? And then at the same time, take a look fun at your building. I'm surprised your building is not filled with solar, so you're not paying $3 million in power. And let it energize your building, because certain times of the evening, you're not fully turned on. That's just something I've been promoting. Go solar. And if you do that, that's $3 million in power alone. I think you could trim that $3 million. And I'm not saying we'll take part of that money and give it to somebody else. No, you keep it. Use it to part of your maintenance, the $1 million you asked for. You save $1 million, keep the $1 million. Do your maintenance. But moving along, before you ask Dr. Christ, Senator Brown, do you have any questions for the panel? And she is also a member of the committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and certainly welcome to all of you from the University of Guam. I think you hear the word of caution in our colleagues with regards to funding, and that's just some of the realities that we have to deal with. The request this fiscal year is quite significant. And I understand the need for it. I mean, I myself am a graduate of the University of Guam. I've taught at the University of Guam. I've worked administratively at the University of Guam, and when I was 9 and 10 years old, I used to ride my bike all over like a kamikaze pilot all over the University of Guam. But I also am going to echo the words of caution, and perhaps that's also something the university should prepare for in terms of how you're going to manage this upcoming year. Most recently, I'm sure you heard the administration publicly stating that if we were to approve the additional legislation we did last week with regards to the LEAP to assist our private sector for those that still need to get back on their feet as a result of this pandemic, and then also to approve the additional $100 credit over the next 5 months again for our island residents, that we would be deficit spending. I don't know how that happened, because a month earlier, the representation from the administration was that, oh, we have the money to do 22% pay raises. And I don't argue pay raises. I think everyone can appreciate it when they put the time and effort and the hard work in wanting to receive a pay raise. But that added an additional $50 million to the overall operation costs of the government of Guam indefinitely. That's $50 million that we don't have available to appropriate for other critical needs in this government. I can't ensure that foster children right now that are in families out there, even though a majority are very dedicated and doing very well, are being visited on a regular basis. I can't guarantee they're safe. I can't guarantee sitting in this job that we are going to have enough financial resources to appropriate to the Guam Police Department to address the most critical issue our people have here right now, is public safety. So I don't argue. I appreciate the advocacy, especially for the students in your presentation, because you are doing exactly what I appreciate that you're doing, is realizing that in order to get your issues to the forefront of policy, you need to be here to advocate for that, and advocate strongly. And I encourage you to continue to do that. But our reality, as the chairman had mentioned, we're going to have to look at the overall government. What can we fund? Because I certainly will not sit here and make a commitment that, sure, you know, I'm going to support your budget. And then, as your administrators have found in previous years, all of a sudden the allotments just don't come in on time. All of a sudden you're barely making payroll. And that's why I've always advocated for the university. I know you guys work very hard with regards to your grants, but it's looking at what alternate sources of revenue can come in. How do you expand the university footprint? How do you adjust and modernize to the new demands of our community? Because not everyone in the future is looking at a 4-year degree. With the changes in technology, the expectations of white-collar positions that will decrease in the years ahead, and that's very much what I'm seeing and hearing, is how do we grow, and how do we redevelop ourselves to be able to respond? I know in a lot of areas you're working on that, but that's something we need to anticipate, because there are changes for the future and what's coming from what the traditional degrees have been, and certainly I've been a student of that. I've got my undergraduate degree at UOG and my master's degree at the University of Hawaii in political science, former Guam Youth Congress member from the University of Guam. So I appreciate your advocacy and the things that you want to do, but I just need to relay to your administration the responsibility of the accreditation of the university rests on their shoulders. doesn't rest on ours. We are not involved in the day-to-day decisions of how the university operates. We're not involved in how financial decisions are being made. I do appreciate the fact that it's finally come up to advocate for the faculty to get raises, but the administration at the university has taken care of themselves first. And you cannot have a functioning university without ensuring that you have the faculty there and the qualified faculty that are compensated, because you're in competition with other jurisdictions, to ensure that you have qualified teachers, professors available to teach the classes that you need in the degree areas that you have an interest in. But that's, again, those decisions are not made by us. They were made by your administration. I used to hear that very issue when I was a student at the University of Guam in the early 80s, when Dr. Rosa Carter was the president of the university, about the issues of accreditation and the concern about accreditation. And I had to make the decision whether or not I should stay on Guam and go to the university with the risk of losing accreditation during the time I was there, working on my 4-year degree. And I made the decision that I'm going to invest myself in the university. I spent 4 years there and was very fortunate to graduate, and very fortunate that the people of Guam paid for my undergraduate degree, because I was able to get a scholarship to the university. So I am supportive of UOG, even though people sometimes think we're critical, but I like to be upfront. I don't like to take people on a long ride and pretend. I mean, I think you need to be upfront so that you can make decisions and also prepare. If you don't get 42 million, let's say you get 38 million or 35 million. It's certainly more than what you received previously. How are you going to manage to get the university through this upcoming year? And that's something I tell every department and agency. It's easy to say, sure, you've got your budget covered, and then, like I said, those of you that have been there over the years, you see how your allotments just don't happen. Or you're trying to make payroll and you're barely edging by. So I certainly appreciate, like I said, the presentation. I appreciate all of you students that are there coming out and advocating for the university. I'm glad you're proud of the institution that you're attending. Look forward to all of you that want to run for office, because certainly those of us that are here are looking forward to the time when we can go out and enjoy life a little more and not be challenged with all these issues. So I do appreciate your presentation. I think you were very well organized and very clear with your message, and certainly as we look at the budget, we'll see how we can prioritize funding. But just keep in mind, we got a tough job. I think the days of the money rolling are going to be shortly. They're coming to an end. I'm very concerned. I thought we'd get through maybe fiscal year 2024. Now I'm not so sure. I think those numbers are going to start going down. What we've been on the last 2 to 3 years as a result of this pandemic has infused enormous amounts of cash, and I'm seeing it dry up. So that's the challenge that we have to face. But again, I appreciate your advocacy and your presentation today. With that, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Senator Kanata, do you have any questions for the panel? Because I know Dr. Tom wants to speak real quick, but you go first, and then he'll be.
Hafidi, good afternoon. Thank you, panel, for coming out. Dr. Christ, thank you for your service to the island, and wishing you all the best on your future endeavors wherever the sea takes you. I know you're an oceaner. You have a boat, and then you also go into the water most of the time, I'm sure. So, you definitely have my commitment to do whatever possible to ensure that you guys get adequate funding to facilitate the needs of the school, most especially you, the faculty, and the warm bodies. It's definitely our goal to ensure that you guys have the capacity to continue operations. Possibly might not have all the money you want. We can give you, your wish list is what we have to try to navigate, right? What are the priorities? We definitely have a hard job. This is my freshman year. I didn't go to college, and I echo the sentiments of, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. But I've worked 3 jobs, 4 jobs, and that's why I stepped up to run for office, is to step up to serve and make a difference for the community, especially the generation. No generation should face the same challenges as the previous generation. So I encourage each and every one of you that want to step up to run for office, step up, run for office. What's the worst that can happen? You win some, you lose some. Life goes on. You carry on. So, if it's definitely your goal to run for office, don't let your age or your education paper tell you that you're not qualified, because only the people will tell you whether you're qualified or not. Who knows if I'm going to be here next election or next term, but you do your best in whatever you strive to do. But, you definitely have my commitment. I don't know if it's 42 million, but our job is definitely a challenge. We want to give everyone what they request, but obviously the wish list cannot always be furnished. We can give you a kitchen, we can give you the soap and the sponge, but we cannot give you the whole kitchen, right? Or something like that. So, yeah, we cannot give you the marble sink, but we can give you a stainless steel sink. But, you know, I know Miss Anita Enriquez, you're also on the table for being president, possibly. So, you know, if that comes up too, we're very excited to work with you. You have my commitment to work with you guys to figure out and navigate all those challenges moving forward. Your oversight chair has been a great oversight chair. I've worked with her. I worked under her at once upon a time. And I know the money man will do his best to find you guys the money. So you have our commitment to working out the kinks and figuring out problems, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Dr. Christ, did you want to say something before your oversight chair who ended, and then
you,
I
Mr.
will
Chair.
close it? And
I wanted
it'll
to
be a
add
record.
two.
We're in less than 2 hours. Thank you.
Yeah, two people who've joined us include the UOG Endowment Foundation Chairman Jesse Leon Guerrero has joined us, and the Faculty Union President Dr. Bob Barber have also joined us. And then if I could respond, when you were suggesting solar panels and so on, so you should know that thanks to your work with the effort to allow us to do public-private partnerships, the Siemens Corporation project is installing LED lights that are much more efficient. So we've got them now in most of the SBPA building, and that project's going on. So there's some efforts in that direction. And also, for Senator Kenyatta, I just wanted to say that the $42 million request isn't anything like a wish list. If it were a wish list, it would be a lot higher number. You know, so $64 million is what in current dollars, as Austin pointed out, in 1993, the $30 million that UOG got would be $64 million now. And so, and another way to look at it is it costs $23,000 on average to educate a college student for a year. And so if you just figure that out, it gets to $55 million at a minimum to operate the university. And that doesn't include the tuition that they pay, which would put that up. So it's not a wish list. This is really what's necessary to manage the universities. I just wanted to make sure that that's clear. And then on Senator Brown, I think there are very good points about the other expenses that the government has to cover. But I think one of the principles I hope you'll think about is that investment in education at all levels reduces the need to spend money on policing, on corrections, on mental health, on GMH, and so on. A recent study found that for every year of average education in a community, that community makes 6 to 8% more in GDP. So you don't have to have the whole community, doesn't have to be college graduates, but every year of average, as you bring more and more people up, the benefits accrue to the entire population. So having a more educated population isn't just good for these students who will be graduates, it's good for everybody in the community. And so the amount that you spend on so many other things will be reduced. And a really specific example would be up until the pandemic, we were spending between 7 and 8 million. Gov Guam was spending 7 to 8 million a year on travel nurses, the world's most expensive nurses. And then we spent $21 million, mostly ARPA funds, on additional travel nurses during the pandemic. If we can, and we're working on it now with more facilities, but if we can generate more of our own nurses, we can reduce, and so you don't have to spend that money on travel nurses who take the money and take it away, right? Same thing with our engineers. Our engineers are being snapped up as fast as we can produce them. They're getting very, very substantial wages for their positions. The employers are thrilled with the preparation for them, and it saves us. It keeps our money here. It keeps our tax revenue here instead of bringing in outside engineers. So there's tremendous benefit. And then all the benefits of the university aren't just to the students who get degrees, but if you think about Cedars alone, alone, so this is the Disability Services Agency of the university, brought in $125 million over the past 25 years to help the disabled population of our community. So they're all that much better off thanks to agents of the university. And that has little to do with the production of new bachelor's degrees, right? The students are involved and so on, but it's a service of the university. And then as to the administrator's scale, so we have multiple levels of scales of pay. The faculty are running on a pay scale that's no more recent than 2003. The administrator's scale was 2009, so we moved it from around the same time, 2003 to 2009. But even that is well behind the classified staff, which are at 2014 scale. And so this 22% raise is meant to bring that up, right, for the classified. So we have always led with the classified staff with their pay scale. And so what we really need to address now is the faculty scale, which is at least 20 years old. So that's important to point that out. And then also you commented too on the allotments. So thanks to the work of the legislature, our allotments have been coming to us regularly, and every week it's 1/52nd of whatever you appropriate has been coming to us. So you were referring to a problem that was a really serious problem up until 2019, I think that was, that you all fixed that for us, and so that's been, despite the austerity of this period, which has been a very serious problem, the regularity of the allotments has been, this has already been tough, but it would have been really, really tough if we were having the erratic allotments that we had. So those are just a few things that came up during that conversation I just wanted to touch on. So,
thank you. And then we'll make sure we put in the budget that you're exempted from any delay in your allotments like we've done. Okay, so that kind of
great,
protects
thank
your
you,
allotment.
sir.
Maybe someone can answer this before I ask the oversight to ask questions. Is there a law that exists like the way they do with DOE, where your professors go through a study so they can be considered for a pay raise recommended by civil service or something, a study? Because if you're saying 2003 is the last time, I'm like, wow, that far ago? Shame on UOG. And the reason why I say that is because 2003, really, your faculty is the last time they got an increase in consideration?
It's the pay scale, Senator, so not the individuals, but the scale.
But that's what I'm saying,
right,
Dr. Christ. Has there ever been a study for the faculty, University of Guam, to keep up with the cost? I'm just curious because DOE has no problem, nurses have no problem, everybody else, only UG. I'm just concerned, and if there isn't, I already reached to the oversight chair, and maybe we'll introduce something where there has to be a study to determine, because right now you're asking for 3.6 million. There's no reservation on my part on that one. That's okay. But there should be a study to make sure the faculties are not getting, so they don't leave to look for a job elsewhere. They can stay on Guam. They can survive. That's my concern. That's the reason why I'm concerned. Like my colleague mentioned, everybody get a degree. Yeah, it's for every dollar, it's $3, $6, great. But when we start exporting our own graduates, we don't get to benefit that $3 or $6 when we can't even keep them on Guam. Not only get them an education, get them better qualified, but make sure we have jobs for them. It's got to work both hands. But Dr. Anita, maybe you might want to respond to that if there's a study. I'm just concerned about the faculty there.
Yeah, buenas, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. We do have a faculty salary committee comprised of representatives from the faculty union as well as administration. And so they have met regularly. There have been proposals on the adjustments on the faculty salary schedule. This is something that is supposed to be addressed regularly. It's just a matter of, is there funding to actually unfold or unveil this adjustment? And so that's been really, that's been the crux of this. As a former new faculty member back in 1995, I remember as an assistant professor with a doctoral degree, my starting salary was $31,000. I'm still signing personnel action forms with new assistant professors barely making $40,000. And so not much has changed since 1995, except for maybe a 1 or 2% adjustment. Faculty are eligible for annual increments after going through a review process, obviously. And, but unfortunately, once upon a time, we had to cap faculty at the much higher scale step. And so you had faculty who have been frozen at step 20 in perpetuity. But because of the competitiveness of salaries nationwide and how difficult it is to get the caliber, the quality of faculty we need for specific disciplines, we had to offer at the top of the scale because it's a relatively low scale. And so this adjustment that we're now seeking to be placed in the FY 2024 budget is to finally start to make it more equitable or bring more parity. And so it's not just a 20% across the board, but rather going, faculty by faculty and seeing where you've got that, sort of inverse kind of relationship that certainly needs to be more harmonized. And so we've prioritized the faculty salary adjustment. We're hoping, regardless of what happens, Mr. Chairman and members of the legislature, that that will continue to be a priority from our end.
Okay, appreciate it. And when you ask the question of you're not too sure what the temperature is, I believe on one thing: if you don't knock, don't expect a response. If you don't ask, nobody's going to know what your needs are. Senator Canata, I think you wanted to speak before. I'm trying to get ready to give it over to the oversight.
My apologies. I just wanted to clarify something during the budget, not budget, when we were appropriating the 22%, I brought up the issue of the possibility for you guys to have issues with WASC accreditation. Has that been rectified, or what is the situation currently?
Yes. We don't want to use accreditation as a hammer. I've had a direct conversation with the president of the WASC Senior College and University Commission. The emphasis really internally to ensure that the student success, academic quality continue to be upheld. The reason why WASC accreditation is critical to the University of Guam, as well as many other universities that have the same accreditation, is that it assures that our students continue to receive federal financial aid, which is available through the U.S. Department of Education. And so this is something that we feel in terms of the university's responsibility to assure that, but the accreditation, one of the major components of 7 components or 8 components within our WASC report that's due next month, is that of financial sustainability. And so you'll have a representative on the accreditation review team who is an expert in finances, who will ask for the trend data, who will look at our audited reports, and certainly we'll have a lot of questions with regard to our sustainability. And so it behooves us as an institution to ensure that we're doing everything we can to represent that in our report. Thank you.
Thank you. Also, I just wanted to give a shout out to all the students attending today's budget hearing. It's very good. You guys are here. I know the girl in the back, she likes to be b-baying in the classes, so there you go. But thank you again for all your testimony. Really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Now I'm going to ask the oversight chair to make her statement before I close this hearing. Madam Senator Sheldon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair Hoffaday, President Christ, Regents, all of the administration, UOG team, and especially the students. Welcome to the Congress building. Thank you for being here, for sharing your testimonies today. I think, many of these numbers are things we've seen in the past. We've been asking for the same amount of money and a little bit more now so we can completely meet the needs of the University of Guam. I've spoken to the chair, who's committed giving as much as possible. And I've spoken to many of you, and I've said 42 sounds like a great number, and he's saying maybe a little less than 40, but I asked him to please round all the way up to 42. Yeah, okay. So
we'll figure out something.
We'll keep trying. And we've seen the student success, we've seen the great accomplishments coming out of the University of Guam, and we don't want to jeopardize anything that we've been working for the past several decades with accreditation, with this student success that we want to continue for Guam and for the region. I'd like to just go back to what Senator Roy Kanata was asking a minute ago about the GPP Public Law 37-3. The 1.1 million appropriated to the University of Guam, of course, there was an amendment in that bill with a caveat that you would not raise tuition if you received this money. So are you accepting this money, or are you not accepting this money?
Ma'am, we're accepting the funds. We have zero intention of raising tuition, and even as the chairman pointed out, it would be great if we could actually make either, free tuition would be great, but reduced tuition. 61% of our students are Pell eligible, which is an indication of financial need. So as an institution, it's important for us to control that. But we just were pointing out that the three options are the general appropriation, the tuition, or oblivion, right? Those are the three options, right? So, so please help us so that we don't have to do anything on the tuition and we avoid oblivion.
Yes.
Yeah, so.
Absolutely. Okay. So, President Christ, in the event that we don't get quite to 42 million, but we get somewhere from the high 30s to possibly $40 million, can you help us prioritize this general operations appropriations list in your testimony? Is this already prioritized from number one, salary adjustment, to salary schedule, followed by the deferred hirings, and then lastly, maintenance?
It's roughly in that order. I mean,
Okay.
it would be, as we have done, we've been, I think, exceptional stewards of resources for decades. So I think it's, it's a very well, not by just me, but by this whole team, this remarkable team has managed these resources really well. And I think with the testimony of students you see, and actually we see with our alumni on the panel, how good the product of this institution is. So, yeah.
Yes, thank you. No need to fluff my feathers, President Christ, but I'm flattered. Thank you very much. Yes, proud to have gone to the University of Guam. So, as you said, you've been good stewards of your resources, and that's a big reason why we passed Public Law 35-114, amending the Charter of the University of Guam and allowing for public-private partnerships and other long-term contracts and leases for the university to be able to diversify resources and income. Can you give us an update of what's happening? Are we seeing increased revenue for the university yet? And what can we expect in this budget year?
Yes, ma'am. So an example I mentioned earlier was the new Siemens project. So that's basically we're getting a lot of equipment initially that helps reduce our utilities bills, particularly electricity, but also water. So that's an element of this. So so that's one important one, and the bill that you helped pass was critical to that capability. We have another public-private partnership that was enabled because of the previous law the legislature passed to create the Research Corporation of UOG. So that allows, under federal rules, we're running the aquaculture facility for shrimp and tilapia in Manilao, just north of the campus, right on the shoreline. And so that's generating, it immediately relieved the university of about $350,000 in annual operating costs by the private company partner picked that up. And then in year 5, we begin profit sharing as part of that. So that's another example. So we have 2 examples of public-private partnerships. We're interested in the possibility of a public-private partnership to build perhaps a 1,000-bed dormitory, which would really enhance our capability to attract students from elsewhere, and not least of which would be our very robust and successful English Adventure program. So right the year before the pandemic, we brought in 6,000 students for 2 to 4 week English immersion programs, and that covered all of the employees of the Global Learning and Engagement, which Carlos Taitano runs, and generated $400,000 of additional revenue for the general operations of the university. So those are some examples of possibilities. We have a very ambitious strategic plan for marketing and communication and for auxiliary services, for enhancing the retail kinds of operations, the bookstore, textbooks, trying to drive down the cost to students while also generating revenue. We have a new plan to sell UOG shirts and other paraphernalia at more private outlets. You've maybe seen it in the Hyatt shop and also ABC stores and so on, so you're seeing that and seeing that elsewhere as well, perhaps even off-island, which would be nice. So those would be some of the capabilities. And then we have all the non-credit courses as well that GLE runs as well. So all those are potential revenue generators for the university.
Can you quantify some of that for us?
So I said there was $400,000 for the GLE above and beyond everything else all of those employees. We certainly have the entire federal research activity, which is, I think we have 210 employees hired entirely on federal grants, and so that's that's tax revenue, that's economic activity. That's a tremendous addition to. Plus, a number of them are also students, and so it's adding to that capacity. So that's 200. I don't know the exact figure for those salaries and everything, but it's $28 million a year in federal research funds that we're attracting. So the legislature's support for the basic operations enables the university to get these other resources and bring them in. The capital funding is $50.1 million to build the 7 projects that we have. So that's the EPSCoR House, the Science Lab, the second floor of the Science Lab, the Student Success Center, the Engineering Building, the Weary Building, the Nursing Building, and the Guam Cultural Repository. So that's a huge amount of activity, and we were able to attract those resources because of the basic foundation that the legislature has created by the general appropriation. So the investment that you make allows us to bring in all of these resources. The $125 million for over 25 years by Cedars is enabled because of that basic foundation that the legislature has created. So the way we generate $3 for every dollar you give us is just what I said. All of those activities are enabling us to bring these resources to the economy of Guam and to Gov Guam's tax revenue. So it's important to realize that it's a great benefit because you see it in the students and the graduates that we have, but it's also real money in real time.
Okay, thank you very much. Has there been any work on the university side, steps taken for us to refinance or accelerate any of our payments for existing loans for our debt obligations for us to save some money in that way?
So maybe we could have Rachel, maybe you might be able to comment on that.
Hi, Senator Shelton. Thank
We
you so much.
weren't going to let you get away without speaking,
Oh, man.
Rachel.
I was like, we're almost at the tail end. I was just going to sit here and smile at all of you. So we haven't, the only other financing outside of what President Christ had mentioned is really the loan that we have for the School of Business and Public Administration, the Jesus Leon Guerrero building. And that is going to be paid up until, I believe, like 2040, if I'm not mistaken. So that's paid combination of 2 things, $500,000 that comes out from the GEF fund that's appropriated through the budget laws every year. And then there is a contribution from the University of Guam Endowment Foundation. And so the total payment is about $700,000+ every year. We haven't looked into trying to refinance that, only because there are just a ton of other types of financing priorities related to the new construction projects. And so we're open to any suggestions that you might have, because this really isn't like I know in the budget law document, there are a bunch of like debt obligations at the beginning of the bill. And so the line of thinking would be, well, what can we refinance and go out on the market again to do? That hasn't been something that we've searched or looked into at this time. So
maybe that's something we can think
Yes,
about in
yes.
these next few months.
Yes,
All right,
thank
you
you.
very much. Okay, so we have $1 million for deferred maintenance. And, I think there's been some progress with the air conditioning units and the mold, lots of things that we were hearing complaints about in past budget years. But I wanted to ask, to what extent are our repairs and rehabilitation projects going to be funded by the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act? Are we receiving money at the University of Guam, and what can we use that money for?
So, Senator, I'm not aware of any use of the new Infrastructure Act. We're certainly attuned to it, but I don't think that nothing has been, there's nothing specific yet for that, but we're certainly aware of it. And I say that one of the things that UOG, I think, has really figured out is how to apply for grants. And so we have a capacity for deciding which things are worth going for, and that sort of thing. So I think that's one of the great sort of developments of recent years has been this ability to get grants and then and know when we can execute them well. So.
Yes, thank you very much. So I hope we will keep our eyes and ears open for all of those things and, the refinancing possibilities, any federal money that can come in. I think, the Vice Speaker said it well that we, have to explore all of our options for these things to bring in any dollars that we can to the university,
Yes, ma'am,
in addition
absolutely.
to, of course, our local commitment. So I know we've had lots of conversations. Dr. Enriquez and I have talked about our scholarships and financial aid, and we're working together to increase some things, make things more efficient. So I will save all of those questions and discussions for a later time so we can all get out of here and thank the chair. We won't give him any more ideas, but keep pushing for that $42 million. I want to thank everyone again, especially the students, all of the team who put this budget together, Randy and Rachel, thank you very much, and the Board of Regents. So we look forward to working together to make this happen. So just Masi, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Shelton. But in reference to the refinancing, maybe we can put it in the Budget Act that you allow you, if you choose to, refinance. Because otherwise, if we don't put it there, you'd have to wait for a bill. And it's a simple statement, so you have that flexibility. If the opportunity exists, great. If it don't, ignore it and move on. Okay? Is there anyone else? I guess there's no one else testified. Not everybody raise your hand at one time, okay? We're good. Thank you, Dr. Christ. And being that there's no one else here to testify, again, I want to thank everyone for attending this hearing and for providing feedback and suggestion. The University of Guam's budget hearing is now adjourned. It is now 3:27. Jesús Mazen, please have a safe day. Take care. Thank you.